Yes, indeed, a very, very good morning to you. Thank you so much for joining us for this Tuesday edition of The Tackle on the 27th of October 2020. Tarehe ngapi? 27th of October 2020. 27th of October 2020. Asante sana, karibu. And as usual is when you get in, tunaomba ya kwamba ukifika please like when you like I get to know that you're watching us, and after you like please share. When you share you give someone else an opportunity to watch the broadcast. Ukifika pale fanya nini? Piga like. Ukisha piga like una share. Ukishare unapea mtu mwingine nafasi ya kuweza kutazama broadcast. We have a very great show lined up for you today. Tunaenda kuangalia events ya launch ya jana ya BBI. Tuone nini kulikuwa na nini? Did we launch the report? Did we not launch the report? What took the day and what are the kind of questions that were raised in yesterday's event? Pia unaweza pia kuchangia, utuambie ni nini unafikiria kuhusu yale mambo ambayo yaliendelea jana pale Bomas of Kenya, na ni nini unafikiria is the future of BBI report ama the future of constitutional changes in this country. So tunaenda kuingia kazi haraka sana, lakini kama jienda sana ndapea kijana yangu ya 7 day anaitwa Moyo Samba all the way from Kisii aweze kutupeleka mbele za Mungu haraka tukirudi tujue itakuwaje. Areba.
Hey Gerald, I think tangu mwaka ianze very many people have been trusting me with prayer. Probably I'm meant to be a bishop.
We are trying to God is trying to speak to you. Panda mlima.
Exactly. Now before niombe, I want to take you to the book of Revelation chapter 3 verses. No, the book of hiyo kitabu ya mwisho inaitwaje? Ndio Revelation.
Unataka kwa John Pesa.
Revelation.
Unataka kwa John Pesa usema Sulemani aliuangalia.
Revelation 3:16 says, and to the angel of the church in Philadelphia write this: he who said that is holy, he who is true. And 17 says, I know your works, and before you I have set an open door, and no man with whichever strength can shut it. The encouragement this morning is that the Lord knows your works. And once he sets an open door, no man, no governor, no senator, no member of parliament, no heckler, no BBI will shut it. So tukue na imani kwamba Mungu akitufungulia mlango hakuna mtu atafunga. Wacha tuombe. Lord, we thank you for this morning. We thank you for our country. We thank you for our leaders. We thank you for this station. As we are going to go through the events of yesterday, may you give us wisdom so that we can dissect it and be able to share it out to the people. And at the end of the day, glory shall be into your name. We pray for this country. We pray for the president. We pray for the deputy president. We pray for their cabinet. We pray for all the leaders, that you may come, that you may reveal your hand unto them, so that whatever they do, it can be to the glory and to the honor of your people. May they learn that the positions they have them to serve the people, and they don't have them to serve their personal interests. As we're going to debate, may you be with us. In Jesus' name we pray.
Amen. Asante sana Bishop mtarajiwa ambaye Mungu anaendelea kuzungumzia. Na tafadhali ukifika pale usimalize 3 tena. At least tuongeze kwa hiyo safari ya 3. Tuko pia na mgeni leo, jamaa anaitwa Arnold Maliba mwenyewe ameweza kutujoin. Ilikuwa kuja jana lakini nikasikia kwamba program yake ilikamatika hapa na pale. Unajua sasa hizo wakati wa kukaranga BBI.
Ama alikula fair.
There are a lot of chances that actually huyu jamaa inaweza kuwa alimeza fair, lakini atuambie Arnold, how are you sir?
I'm doing fine.
Good morning.
Morning to you. I am happy to be here today. I was supposed to be here yesterday, but for one reason or the other, I wasn't able to make it because I had already committed to be somewhere else. And I was just coming from Western, so I was so tired. I realized I'm not even as young as I used to think. Marathon ya 2 days. Nakuja Nairobi na skeni kama nimechapa kuliko.
Lakini walio hata kulaunch BBI lazima muende nyumbani. What is wrong now?
Kwenda nyumbani ni muhimu. You know how home is important.
You know, I always make this joke that when you see buses going to Western Province, ikienda imebeba viti, mattress, baiskeli, kila kitu juu. Ikirudi pia the same imebeba. Na unlike buses za kwenda Kisii, sisi usafirisha mizigo kuteremka, aturudishi. Mbona unasafiri na baiskeli kurudi Nairobi anauza?
Kwa sababu we are very utilitarian as a people. As in we carry our own weather wherever we go. As in kama ninapenda jua naenda na jua yangu, nikirudi narudi na jua yangu. You walk around with your own weather. So it's like carrying the weather. Uliona president kama Konyeri? You saw he had his own security people and he was addressing them.
Of course.
That's the man who understands. He has carried his own weather. You come with your own crowd.
But one thing I love with the people from Western is wanapenda nyumbani. Hakuna mtu anapenda nyumbani.
But do you know that is so bad? On the downside, let me just give you an example. You know, I was born in the city here.
Yes.
until my father sold the pen. Kitambo alikuwa anasema unafutwa kwa magoti. And then he had to go back home. And then because we were born in Eastlands, I'm talking about Nairobi North. And Nairobi North being, you know what, wanachanganyanga Eastlands na Nairobi North. Starehe and Kasarani is Nairobi North. So while we were there was a lot of land at that particular time, Huruma, Mathare North, Kienda hivyo kwote. Our people would get land, na wanauza wanasema afadhali ninunue kashamba nyumbani. Unaona hiyo logic? Yes. Kuwa unauza plot Nairobi unasema vitu hatuna maana, hii pesa ni mingi, naenda kununua shamba extra home.
Acha ninunue shamba nyumbani.
Sasa hiyo shamba ya home unajua, of course shamba ni shamba, but you cannot compare.
Yes. Shamba si shamba bwana.
As in at the end of the day ni pale unaweza kaa, but then you cannot compare. So hiyo mambo ya kupenda home iko na downside yote. Hakuna Waluya ita, and especially my clan for example.
Wako.
My clan for example.
Kuna jamaa kwa gate. Okay.
Let me give you because unajua ya juu Waluya. I read about Lunjes kidogo. I come from the Wanga people.
Okay.
So the Wanga are actually the third most populous people after the Maragoli and the Bukusus. We have got 4 constituencies to our name. 4. Ako najua ni Kisi County mzima.
Yes.
4. We are 1 million people, and only the Wangas in this world are the same number with all the Turkanas, whoever were there, and we are not even a tribe.
Why?
But the Wangas, since walikuwa na Mumias Sugar kabla yanguke, hawako wanakuja hii town. Walikuwa wanaona kuja town ni ujinga. So unaweza kukutana na Mbukusu, upatane na Maragoli town na watu wengine wote, lakini kupatana na Mwanga ni bahati mbaya hii town.
It is an accident.
It's an accident, and there are 1 million human beings. So Mumias Sugar is no longer working. That's why you saw guys wanachinjana, watu wanapigana. So you remember that particular time where there was a lot of funny stuff until Matiang'i had to go down there. And those guys had the nonsense ya kusema kuwa if you go to Nairobi, ukitoka Mumias unapanda gari unakuja, wakiona wanacheka, watu wako stage wanasema angalia watu wanaenda Kawangware, because sugarcane had actually made them stupid to a level that you can actually have a holidays, take your children to school, live a life by never leaving, because Mumias Sugar was worth almost 300 billion.
Of course.
So kupenda nyumbani pia iko na madhara yake. Ni afadhali utoke nje uende ulete.
Yes. Gerald, pole tunachukua show yako.
Hata tutokange nje, najua vizuri kujua
kidogo Gerald.
Ndio fasa meko basi, lakini mtalipa hasa premium time.
Kuangalia watu wengi. Said about Mumias Sugar. I was fortunate to have worked with Mumias Sugar as a partner during its heydays. And every time I visited the factory, you could see there was a lot of life around that place.
Have you been there recently?
I've been there. I was there last year, and it was a very sorry state. It's a ghost town. Kulikuwa na supermarket hapo. I think it's a Ketia supermarket or something, which used to serve the area. Hata ungepita huko saa 8 ya usiku, it was a 24-hour economy. Lakini saa hizi ukipita, and that is why sometimes unaangalia unasema kweli Mungu, ukirudi kumbuka watu wako. There are people who are suffering because of the downfall of Mumias Sugar. That town size haina pesa.
But they be talk when you have got a little bit of, you want to leave the studio and you want to do probably a feature. Just go and do a feature on the ghost town that is Mumias now.
Yes.
From Shibale, Angola, Mumias town, and Kero. It was the only 24-hour town in this city. Or rather, in the West.
In the West.
Because even Kisumu would go to sleep after 1.
Yeah.
But Mumias Sugar will operate 24 hours. Today you go there, and everything else is dead, totally dead. That one can actually tell you how much that place meant, how the factory meant so much. Because at its heyday, by then it was worth 300 billion shillings in economy. There are only 2 places where money used to circulate heavily in Western. That was in Kisii and Mumias.
Yes.
So what happened in Mumias?
A man decided kukula na straw ama na kijiko.
Yes, straw. Yeah, alivuruta kubwa kabisa.
Alivuruta wakakula na ikaenda kwingine.
Alivuruta na high volume pipe.
So na ikaenda kabisa. So watu wako tu hapo hivyo tunapigiana story tukienda left. And then also the other mistake has been that the quality of leaders down there is very wanting. If I asked you, if you met the Mumias West MP, will you know him? Do you know him?
No, I don't even know there is a place called Mumias West.
There's Mumias East, of course, unajua hiyo, because Washali has been noisy. There is the other part of Mumias that was broken. It's called Matungu. Do you know even the MP there?
No, I don't.
No, that tells you. 1 million people.
I think the only person I know is Atuoli.
Atuoli comes from Kakamega, yes.
That's the only Luya I know in town.
Is that the only Luya or the only noise maker?
Maybe the only noise making Luya in town.
That's a very loud Lunje.
Alright, wacha tena tupige shoutouts tukirudi. Unajua Moyo pia anaongea hapa na Wakisii naye, lakini Wakisii all over today. Ukienda Eldoret wamejaa Elgon View, ukienda pale America wamejaa Minnesota, ama inaitwa ni Minnesota.
When the president was in Kisii,
In New Jersey kwanza unaweza kufikiria Amerika wakati.
When the president was in Kisii the other day, he said that one of the people one of the tribes that you can find everywhere are Kisis. I went to South Sudan and I was in a market, nikaenda kununua avocado. And then I looked at that lady and I was like, I just talked in Kikisi. Ni pesa ngapi? And she responded in Kikisi.
Kwa nini ulianza kuongea Kisii?
You see, you can, unajua Wakisi tunajuana.
Unaweza
angalia
unasikia tu ka spirit.
Unaweza angalia mtu ukaona hii kichwa kubwa hii ni ya Mkisii.
Tete kazi.
But really it's the pressure at home.
Partly, yes.
The same thing happens with the Maragolis. Pressed together, they are everywhere. Yeah.
Alright. Asante, wacha tuende tupige tusalimie wananchi. Naona wamefika sana, wameanguka kwa sana. Acha tusalimie tupige kuna jamaa amepita hapa Mwangi, nimeona comment yako imeanguka hapo haraka, imepita zaidi, lakini nimeona comment yako producer ameona utasukumiwa ya time yako. Pole. Ni kama jana tulienda ku launch BBI mapema, tukasahau kulikuwa na watu walikuwa wamekula credit. Lakini bado tuko na nambari ya wale watu ambao waliweza ku win credit. Muita Mwangi, Benta B anasema good morning. Muita Mwangi anasema good morning. Good morning to you. Timoto na kuona PK Kasirim anasema great show. Asante sana. Na mdosi yako bana baada konjiana hajafika. Ambia pia Loli Mumba kesho lazima anguke hapa the tackle. Victor Kipkosgei Kibro anasema watching from 1-3. Asante Richard Tanu anasema we must hustle. Lawrence Kigen anasema good morning. Rona Kimutai Betwell na kuona anasema good morning tuko ndani. Eric Tinego good morning. Kibro Tijmeya morning. Just as Rotumoy good morning team. Good morning to you. David Kamau anasema morning team kubwa team tackle. Asante sana. Isaac Kiprop K anasema iko moto. Ndalu Twini anasema good morning. Good morning to you. Ndalu Twini Kibruna Dennis anasema morning. Richard Michael Obere good morning. The tacklers getting you from Kilifi town. Juliet Nyokabi anasema morning. Rono Kipchumba anasema good morning brother Gerald Bitok. Good morning to you. Mtu wa Kanu liona jamani jana watu walijana anasema muzitishwe hapo natutishwa chanzi nini. Haya Kiwes Mwangi Kiguya anasema tune this morning tackle breakfast waiting to hear your views on the jana BBI. DP killed it. All right. Dennis Mwangi anasema tuko babaya kabisa. By the way leo tuko babaya vile kuliko vile tulikuwa jana. Anza watu wa BBI. Sami Kiamba anasema morning. Good morning. Kent Kwena anasema good morning. Boniface Chiri anasema good morning sir. Good morning to you and Karuri. Good morning. Simeon Kimona anasema morning live from Doha Qatar. Asante Vicky Bear anasema watching from States. Good podcast. Asante sana. Hey, watu wa States bana nawapenda. Kuna jamaa aliandikia message jana. Juzi kutoka States na mwingine kutoka Australia akaniambia wakikosa tackle pale ngambo ni shida kubwa sana. So tunashukuru, thank you so much guys for the support. Kimbiani pale YouTube, watch videos without skipping. Angalieni ni kazi gani tunafanya pale YouTube, alafu ili tuweze kusaidiana. Enda pale YouTube, share the podcast ya YouTube ili tuweze kuona ya kwamba tunasongeza injili mbele zaidi ya tackle. Watu wa diaspora, thank you so much. Watu wa diaspora wanatuambia kwamba natupenda zaidi na hakuna siku ambayo inaweza fanya bila tackle. Thank you. Kendi Roberts anasema tuned in from Mombasa. Christopher Munene anasema good morning tacklers. Analo Baron anasema good morning Lord kabisa. Eva Jerry Pat anasema kindly come live to your Facebook page too. Ndio hawa sisi Facebook live ndio hawa sisi tuko kwa Facebook hapo mahali umeweka tu ni Facebook. Alona sana morning brother Gerald no to BBI. Asante Rodney. Robert Kiyok anasema tuned in from Thika every sama sorry YouTube page. YouTube tuko lakini we cannot go live because of the content ambayo inaweza kuja kwa stream iweze kuharibu kazi pale YouTube, lakini tukimaliza in less than 30 minutes tayari video inakuanga imechapa pale YouTube. Asante sana FJ Repart, but maybe we'll see what we can do about that. Richard Michael Obena the Asla tackled the Bombers are also tackling the same. Yeah, it was hot. All right, naona Richard Michael Obera kona badge yake ya share. Tafadhali tafuta badge za share. Share. Ukiingia hapa tafadhali piga share. Itegwa idea anasema good morning tacklers. Good morning to you Muita Dhumbi anasema Malaba bora tuko locked. Caleb Juma good morning Gerald, wewe ni msema kweli along Kangundo Road watching. Asante sana. Peter Mudhama anasema no to BBI. Hey, mnaanza siasa mapema asubuhi. Asante anasema good morning team tackle, eagerly waiting for today's discussion. Catherine Mwangi following from Nyeri. Catherine Mwangi anasema BBI nope. Ole Sepia Vincent anasema morning I want the credit but I haven't been credited and yet I send my number. Today you will be credited by fire by thunder. Arugad Big Rwasona anasema wacha tusikie, ila hila anasema morning Gerald gotea wageni eti Waluya lazima aende kwa nyumbani bwana. Hata jana launching ya PPI walikuwa wameenda home kukula sherehe ya PPI. Badri Mgure anasema good morning tuned in kwa Kajiado. Jeb Tarus because I'm watching from Kabwalat KU South. Asante Sami Meli anasema tuko area. Emmanuel Kipsang anasema lovely program. Good morning brothers and sisters, be peaceful, reaching out to Trump Towers DC. Evans Kiprop Kips Rob anasema reach out to Alex Matere that after spending most of his time in Capitol Hill than his home Kitale, it's just a waste of time for the dream of the Senate. He should not attack someone of the rank of DP if he wishes to prosper. There is a curse. Oi, Unajua mimi sijatosha mahali pa kupeana kasi, lakini kama wewe ni mzee zao unaweza peana, tutajaribu kupitisha. Clear fast na rama kwa nasema good morning Tackles informative program. Thank you Kalavyo nasema Kamulu alonganga. Asante sana watu wa Kamulu. Eze Barwel sema good morning, I love the program. Pia sisi tunacheka. Asante sana Manuel Kimsa nasema Shenzi Gerald Old knows mzee Atwali. Yeah, wako state pamoja. Inaitwa Minnesota kanisa kwa lugha ya Kikisii. Nazari pia. Wakisii. Asikama mpaka wako na Nazari huko Minnesota. Ai, na kanisa wanahubiri na Kikisii. Ai, Wakisii bwana mtatuonyesha maneno. Haya. Pita na kiwa kibwa sema great show. Edwin K Chumba sema niko great. Frederick Murua anasema hey Sankara Kibor the show is so lovely, thank you. Alex Wilson sema morning unasema naona amepeana namba yake. Nathan Kimani anasema hey Kenny Robertson, so many lies were exposed yesterday, customized minds and term. Do you think the way thanks so TB facing them in the next 5 minutes na wapea shout out alafu tuanze kwanza kazi. Edward Edward sema Moroza locked Amos Coach anasema watching live from Kericho. Andrew Kathimu na kuona Isaac Ngeti na kuona Sam K na kuona Rap Kinyua na kuona Caroline Coach na kuona Honorable Benjamin Rob mwenyewe Makerer na kuona Freddy Edwin na kuona Chiria Tiegon na kuona Sami Osh na kuona Jaseman Chege na kuona Tenguel Martin Jr na kuona David Chebel na kuona Gili Roboy na kuona Samuel Kangeta na kuona Elvis Kidogo na kuona Sultan Arithuku na kuona Thumbi na kuona Elvis Keleting na kuona Ben Menja na kuona Emedi Muhammad Yare na kuona Muiru Mwanike na kuona Yagan Kimutai na kuona Dennis Kirwa na kuona Caleb Chuma na kuona. Anasema muona maswali ya William Samuel ilileta shida, tumuona nia naye. Asante. Wacha tuende kwa magazeti haraka upesi. Wacha tuanze na watu ambao wanaitwa The Nation Media Group. Nation Media Group headline inasema nini? Headline inasema Uhuru Ruto clash. Nasema kwamba Uhuru na ndugu yake William Ruto jana walikanyagana. Pale chini pia kuna Waititu. Nasema kana Waititu wanasema yeye is very sick. Yeye ni mgonjwa, hawezi ingia kotini. Ukiona pale kwa gazeti ya Taifa leo inasema Ruto ararua BBI. Gazeti nasema Ruto ararua BBI. Tajana wapi alitaruia BBI. Naona gazeti ya The People Daily, The People Daily Standard wacha tuone nasema moment of truth. Ni mambo pia ya BBI. Every other day is now focusing on what happened yesterday at the BBI vote, so we also be focusing today. The People Daily inaongelea mambo ya Betrol Ryan's drone. Inasema principal pia pale juu kuna story ya principal succumbs to COVID-19. Huyo ni principal wa Tononoka Secondary School pale Mombasa, aliweza kufa wiki moja baada ya kusemekana kwamba kulikuwa na 10 other teachers and students ambao walikuwa wamekuwa diagnosed na coronavirus. Inaonekana kwamba coronavirus inaendelea kuleta shida nchi. That is the second wave that has been talked about by the Ministry of Health. Pale the main event of Betrol Ryan's drone, kuna picha ya Uhuru Kenyatta, Raila Odinga na mheshimiwa Rais Uhuru Kenyatta pale Lusaka pale nyuma, Justin Muturi pale nyuma. Nasema kwamba President Uhuru Kenyatta, Deputy President William Ruto and former Prime Minister Raila Odinga during the launch of the Building Bridges Initiative BBI at the Bomas of Kenya. Bomas contest event to kick a start journey to reform the constitution through BBI turns into a political showdown as President Kenyatta accuses his deputy of insincerity in opposing the project. Says Ruto was fully briefed. Uhuru Kenyatta said we were running a relay, but instead of him waiting for the button, William started running backwards. William Ruto, today you might have the latitude to do what is right as per you, but tomorrow the shoe might be on the other foot. That is William Ruto speaking. Raila Odinga said the 2010 constitution was a ceasefire document. We agreed if it can be improved to address issues facing the country. Tumesema kwamba katiba ya mwaka 2010 ilikuwa katiba ya ceasefire document. Sijui unaweza kuwa uko na maoni gani pia kama mwananchi ambao unatazama. I don't know what comments you think. Do you think Constitution 2010 was a ceasefire document? By the way, do you think Constitution 2010 was a ceasefire document? Anyway, tukisonga haraka nitaenda kuchukua maoni ya panelists wetu watuambie ni nini ambao waliona jana. Just a quick review of the events of yesterday. Nitaanza na wewe Areba Samba moyo. Sasa tunangoja huyu jamaa atoke Western sheria PPI. Moyo. Just your review what happened yesterday.
Briefly, yesterday was meant to be the day that the BBI was to be launched formally to the Kenyans. Of course, we had several people from different parts of the country attending. And it seems like we did a preparation and selected a choir to go to Bomas of Kenya. Because even quite a number of my friends attended. And I earlier expressed my sentiments that I hope the people who had been selected are people who are not only traveling to Nairobi, but also when they leave Nairobi back to the villages, they're able to take value back to the villages. I have a photo of somebody from my village who was asleep by 9 a.m., probably having traveled all the way from Nyamache from 3 a.m. and go to Nairobi in the morning. But that is beside the point. The point is that everybody who attended, be it from Kitale, be it from Kisii, be it from Turkana, because I know all parts of the country were fairly represented. I hope when they leave Nairobi, they don't just leave Nairobi with a new shirt. I hope they leave Nairobi with some content which they are taking back to the village. And I hope that when they travel back to the village, they are able to take even their own families through the document, because they were the first recipients of the BBI document. Then the second issue that was unfortunate was that everybody who stood up to talk, it looked more like a choir. Everybody was standing to praise the document, and that is why we saw some people taking issue with the deputy president and even Moses Wetangula for saying that we probably needed to look more into the document and try to add value to it. It was not meant to be that all people we are taking to Bomas of Kenya are supporters of BBI. We also needed to hear dissenting voices so that they can be able to tell us really what is it in the BBI report that they disagree with. And as the deputy president said, let us not take these issues personal. This is a constitution for all Kenyans that we are trying to amend. So if there is a dissenting voice, and the president alluded to this, that no idea is more superior than an idea. And in any event, all ideas need to be worked on so that they can be bettered. And that is why I'm saying that the organizers of that launch, they made a fatal mistake in ensuring that all the people who stood up to the podium to speak, it was just one chain of thought that, hey, please let us support this. This is a good document. Some of them without even giving reasons. And some, went to the stage to which was not the spirit of the BBI launch. So in overall, what happened was expected. And at the end of the day, my hope is that those who were in Bomas, they're taking value back to the villages. I'll be a very sad person if the person who represented me from my ward, goes back to the village and goes back to drink changa and never gets to even tell his own family about what is in the report. And lastly, we of course saw the jabs which were thrown around from the president and his deputy. And that is why I always tell people, this thing is never personal. Those of us who take these issues personal, they are never personal. The deputy president shoots straight from the hip, and the president responded. And he told him what really the issue was. And then at the end of the day, si kila mtu alienda kwake. Yeah, hata mimi nilirudi kwangu. So please, let us not take this issue personally. Let us have credible conversations about issues. It's never about persons. The BBI is not about Murathe. It's not about Atwoli. It's not about Murkomen. It's not about Bitok. It's not about Maliba. It's about the Kenyans.
All right, Maliba, your reviews of the events of yesterday.
Well, yesterday was underwhelming, hugely underwhelming. It was overhyped, in my opinion, because what came out of it does not match what had actually been put forth earlier. I hoped that BBI 2 would be much up there on substance and direction where we are going. It looks like either the report that was essentially prepared was not the document we got yesterday. Now, moving on quite fast, he speaks about the jabs that were thrown around. I need to say this, that dialogue is difficult. In fact, dialogue is the most difficult way of solving things, but then accept all the others. But the other alternatives then means that we are going to cut each other. That's how we are going to solve issues. I'm just saying that, like democracy, BBI is the worst form, not really BBI as in a dialogue, is the worst form of how you will solve issues. But then the others are not palatable. So it's not the best, yes, but then the others also are not palatable. So dialogue presupposes that there is going to be freedom of speech, that somebody else from that end, you will bring your idea, I will bring mine. And that then creates friction. Friction creates movement, and movement brings progress. That's why I'm saying that even if dialogue is difficult, it's probably the only way we have as humans to actually look at this. So I don't see anything new in the report other than it has gone back to where I know the noises we made actually made sense, or rather there was an input. You realize that every sector that spoke up loudly, somehow they got something. Even though I understand that BBI is a special project, for reasons we might never know why it's actually important now, everything else in this particular document are just sweeteners. like from where I come from, I'll use that example, or rather from where my relatives come from. Because according to them, I should not be a proper lawyer because my umbilical cord was not buried at home. It was buried in hospital. Yeah, somewhere in Pumwani. Yeah. So if you are going to eat ugali na mboga, you then decide what ugali you will eat, then mboga unaongeza chumvi na hizo vitu zingine zote. So there is some kaugali na mboga hapa yenye iko ndani ya BBI, sisi wengine hatujui. The rest of us tunaletwa tu kwa sababu ya spices, chumvi na hizo vitu zingine, the youth commissions of this world, those administrative issues, policy issues, and stuff that should simply go to parliament. And they didn't need such like a process to actually come to birth. So as of yesterday, already these guys didn't know that we honestly need you talked about a choir. Even a choir has got some variety. Because you have got
a bass, kuna tenor, soprano,
kuna soprano, kuna alto, and sometimes we even break down voices. Tenor 1, tenor 2. You then move from bass 1, bass 2, mpaka bass 4, by the way.
So he has abused the choir.
He has even abused the choir. This one was a monotonous conversation. It was in one tone. Just one man spoke for the other millions who were not there. And I have heard, you can still find out, it said that BBI is supposed to be the premise upon which dialogue, I'm talking about a national dialogue, will be premised, right? But what we saw yesterday was an orchestrated, people coming up and singing in one monotonous line. And there was no one speaking up. It was just endorsements after endorsement. Anyone who tried, by the way, to ask questions or propose a proper dialogue was booed. Mudavadi was booed, if you remember.
Yes.
I don't want to talk about WSR because it was rather obvious. And it took a very strong character to actually stand up to people who were trying to intimidate him throughout. Yet, as he spoke, I am sure that out of every 5 Kenyans, 3 would ask those questions. He didn't even make a counter argument. He just asked questions, and I can tell you from a policy perspective, they were very basic questions. Introductory questions like, tell us about yourself. And they could not take those questions. I do not know whether those people who could not take basic questions are ready for a dialogue. Knowing that a dialogue is very difficult. It's never easy. That's why it takes long. See, we have got some secretariats around the world, for example, in Arusha, secretariats to deal with issues in Rwanda, Burundi, and stuff. And it's taking years, and some people will not understand why. These people are just talking. Why are they taking years? Because dialogue is difficult. But do we have any other alternative? Unless we are saying we give war a chance. But that's not where we are. We already left the caves. We are no longer those. We are civilized human beings. So we have to go the dialogue way. So from yesterday, number one, I feel the report they launched is not the report some people expected. I have seen Wamalwa, the Kiminini MP, bashing Adam Solo in the committee today in the morning. There's a disappointment. There's a feeling, there's a disappointment that whatever they have probably is not what they really expected. I will also feel that way because the fire, thunder, and the floods that were promised to us didn't show up yesterday. We were told there would be demons. We were told when BBI comes, it's a big river. It will be flowing down and no one will stand in its way. What showed up yesterday, I can tell you, even if, for... in every war there are about 3 T's. You talk about terrain, tactics, and training. So from a tactical point, it would not be wise for those who are opposed to BBI to pull back, even though it looks like it's a good thing, because it is not now about what and why BBI is being done. It is now the mischief is going to be in the how. They launched a report, brought people from everywhere, but these human beings did not come up with an implementation strategy. So exactly where, because if you look at this thing is not implementable. It's not. You need an implementing matrix. It's not there. It's not. I'm talking about clear. If you understand what you do a log frame so that it's clear. What next, where, how. We begin with an end in mind. It's not there.
I even had there's someone who was saying, okay, you guys have approved it, so what next? Anyway, ndio tukuje tuingie deeply. Ngoja kwanza, ngoja ndio turudi. No, it was just a review. Ngoja tuende alafu turudi sasa tuone. Ngoja, naona mmeshika moto haraka sana. Alright, ngoja tuende tupige kando tukirudi tukuje tuingie mambo ya BBI. In other news, the Kenya National Exams Council NEC expressed a major concern over the level of preparedness by the grades 4 and 8 to sit for the final year examinations. This follows a random assessment exercise carried out across the country, across schools that will end on Monday, October 26th. According to a report prepared by the Exams Council, some grade 4 pupils can barely read and write. Yeah. Let alone recall what they studied before schools were forced to close in March 2020. Why? Watoto wakumbuke nini liendelea last year. Akianani. Next further details that KCP candidates really struggle to tackle questions derived from lower class syllabi. That's a few years. Munasemaje mambo ya shule? Anza naye Maliba.
I think from what I know that
Imesema watoto wakumbuke nini walisoma last year.
But again, also sometimes I think our reporting is not very good sometimes. It is natural that when I stay away without reading necessarily, I am out of that environment. I might not catch up very fast. The effects of children staying home for 6 months cannot be stated at this particular point. It's too early. So you will need a bit of time, like when we are doing KCSE or rather KCP later on, then you can actually tell how the impact was. At this particular time, we still have got time to actually catch up. But let's say this. Children are normally serious vectors. I'm using that word deliberately. Very serious vectors of anything flu. Because kama niko na homa, kama mtoto kangu kanapata kakienda kanagawa class mzima, hiyo class inasambaza kwao, au watu wanapeleka job. So a whole city can actually get flu because of a school setting. So there was wisdom in having children stay at home. You can actually realize if it's going to hit a few schools, if COVID hits in a few schools, because children are strong, they will not necessarily get the ultimate consequences. But I can tell you their grandmothers and their fathers at home with the lifestyle challenges and the underlying issues would be actually the highest people to suffer. So there was logic and science in having children go home. They are okay, they are strong, they can fight the thing. But they are serious distributors, they are serious mosquitoes, as in if you look at it from a malaria perspective. So I still feel it's dangerous. And the numbers that are going high, I am not a medical person, but from the little statistics I know, is that there could be a contribution, and opening up of schools is a factor.
All right. So mambo ya shule wanafunzi wako tayari kufanya mtihani. Areba Samba.
I mean it's not all about the examinations, and this is the problem that we have put into our heads. That school is all about examinations. It's not. And partly that is what the current curriculum was meant to address. So that ukiingia shule, we are not being drilled just for examinations. Once umepita mtihani ukikuja hapa nje ukipewa hata ukiambiwa ufanye kitu basic huwezi fanya. And this is where we get it wrong. And I said on this show that we treated the opening of schools just like the second coming of Christ. Nobody knew the time and the day. And we kept on giving parents mixed signals. For those who are parents hapa najua walikula school fees kitambo.
He's traumatized.
When I remember that naishiwa tu nguvu kwa magoti. Anyway, and you see the Ministry of Education then lacked leadership. And I mean at one point the CS says we are not likely to open this year. At some point he comes back and says we are opening this year. At some point he comes back and says we are not sure when we are opening. Then finally comes and says we are opening in 2 weeks time. I mean, that is not the problem. And I hope, for the longest time, we have been speaking about infrastructure in schools. And you know, we have always been preparing for a pandemic. Only that we have not, I mean, we have been setting policy guidelines on how to prepare for this. We'll increase classrooms, we will do this, but we never did this. And then we now got caught flat-footed. You go to schools, they cannot be able to social distance because even the infrastructure that was existing before is not able to accommodate the population that we have. And I wish respectfully that the Ministry of Education will have just taken it easy and wait until when we have suppressed this virus so that then we can get back our students back to school. And as Arnold has said, I really agree with him, but now I agree on this with him. The students are strong. The immunity will be okay. But they're in a confined environment. And now that poses a risk, not only to the students, but the workers and also the teachers. We have already lost a teacher.
Yeah, sure.
And it's going to cause panic all over. Imagine the parent of a student at Tononoka High School akisikia kwamba mwalimu amekufa. Will you leave your student still there?
So it's a question.
It is going to, I mean, it's going to be all panic. Even when I hear that my daughter is unwell with a flu in a boarding school, I'm not able to sleep that day. I keep on calling the teacher and asking what is going on. And here now it's a pandemic. Please, the Ministry of Education, there's no hurry in doing examinations. Examinations is not everything. Examinations is not life. We know people who never finished school. Can we just take it easy, ensure that our kids are safe?
Pole. All right. Desk na mask. In other news, cash trap EACC South African Portland Cement imeingia kwa deni ya 10.2 billion. Nasema ya kwamba EACC has sunk into a 10.2 billion insolvency after it defaulted on a long-term KCB bank loan, forcing the lender to demand immediate repayment. A report tabled in Parliament by Auditor General Nancy Kathungu on the Siemens Farm financial performance for the year ended June 2019 shows that the liabilities payable within 12 months have outstripped current assets by 66% from 6.4 billion the previous year. Cabinet parastatals. What the hell kills these parastatals?
You know, when you speak about
you've spoken about Mupias actually a few minutes ago.
I actually feel sad because in 2013, when we were doing the state parastatals review, you remember the Abdikadir-led committee? There were a few proposals that were made. We even did a bill. We called it GOE bill, Government-Owned Enterprises bill, to replace the State Corporations Act. But somehow there is the cartels that live within that particular sphere. They could not allow the changes that were proposed and everything else. So by default, you realize that a lot of our parastatals, if they are doing well, is that it's by mistake.
They are not by design. They're not supposed to do well.
By design, they are not supposed to be doing well, because somehow we have this art of financing parastatals that don't work well, and some of them are monopolies. For example, that a whole monopoly cannot even get things right. As in, ni wewe tu peke yako bitoku ndio wewe ndio supplier, kuna market, kuna kila kitu na una make loss. As in, even the market mechanism does not even explain that. We talk about a free economy enterprise. It doesn't make sense a lot of times. We have got very poor management. We have not always worked out to ensure that our state-owned businesses really perform optimally. The attitude, the carefree. You know, every time you work in government, I don't know whether you've worked in government before. I've had an opportunity to work and sit on boards before, and I know one thing, that there is an attitude that in government, si lazima ukufie kitu. You know, like if you don't wake up in the morning, somehow we will explain that you didn't show up and this show cannot continue, therefore it is okay. So you can walk into an office, upate koti ko hapo hivyo kwingine. Yet I also know that there are people who work in government very hard. People who really feel frustrated, but they have nothing else to do. And government has got the best trained people, by the way. We use a lot of our own resources to train. That's why people in the private sector, in some sectors, just to wait for guys in the government. Ukishafanya kitu, enda Kenya School of Government, they poach you. But they cannot train somebody with that. And so we use a lot of money to build capacity. And then the ethos, how we govern staff and everything else. You know, administration is quite a complex thing. People will say that public administration is a politicized bureaucracy. That is one theory of public administration. And that way, like, of course, you will have to mix. There is no pure or classical public administration way of dealing with it. So you mix up a number of things. And that is where the problem then begins in our setting where, for example, once you get to government, it's permanent and pensionable for so many people. Of course, in parastatals, we have contracts and such. But the other stuff, normally permanent and pensionable. So unatulia tu, ukishafika kwa parastatal wewe unatulia, unaanza kuchukua loan, unajiendelesha nyumbani na unafanya hizo vitu zingine zote, you loot as much as you can and move on. And I think if we change our politics, then we will change even how government does its business. But we're not doing that. All right.
Areba.
It's an unfortunate situation that government entities and parastatals keep on making losses. When one, of course, they're trading. Two, they receive money from the exchequer. Meru County, I saw a report that Meru County has a petrol station, but but no county vehicle fuels there. And then you are like, please, whoever is responsible, let them shake their head to see kama iko kitu ndani ama hakuna. I mean, for the longest time, National Oil has had issues. I'm like, why can't this somebody make an executive order so that we have so many government vehicles? If government vehicles were to all fuel at National Oil, National Oil will be competitive in the market. And that lack of respect for tax, as Arnold puts it, this is a systematic problem in that our politics are bad politics And when we get into these positions of leadership in state departments or parastatals, we don't see the need to work hard. Because, I mean, at the end of the day, in Serikali, it's only a government vehicle that will be lying in a garage for 3 months because haina tire, sijui procurement, sijui nini. And then at the end of the day, it's sold off as scrap metal. I mean, there is some kind of neglect when it comes to managing government affairs. Sometimes you walk into a government office and you wonder, why is it this much neglected? And I always say this: the leaders that we have in any capacity in government, they don't respect the Kenyans. The moment we start developing that respect for Kenyans, then we will ensure that, number one, Kenyans need service. Number two, we need to use their taxes well. Why would we fund a parastatal and it's trading and it makes losses? Nani alituroga?
No.
You know, I'm so surprised that a county will be owning a petrol station.
Yes, and it's making losses.
Leave alone that county government's vehicles do not go there. As in, what informed? I'm really interested in understanding the policy thinking that went into that. You know, the 3 P's of policy have always been that there is a problem, you manage the politics around that problem, and you come up with a program to deal with that problem. Now, I am actually surprised that a county like Meru has got a petrol station. What informed that? Before we even talk about county vehicles not going there, ordinarily I would understand why you say we have got a national oil or such, because number one, no one has got more vehicles in this country than government. Government has got, government is the biggest marketplace today, even in our city. It's the biggest marketplace. But a county has very few vehicles. They have got a petrol station and they don't even fuel there. As in procurement-led programs and politics where somebody had an idea of either selling land or there was an existing petrol station and therefore they wanted to dispose it off. And the best place to dispose junk is government. You give them and you are sorted. You take your money and go home.
And that's why you say we live in a very magical country. We love our country. Lastly, then we go back to BBI. Najua hiyo ndio mnangoja. The International Criminal Court has distanced itself from any investigation which might be ongoing in the country within the aim of reviving the 20708 post-election violence cases. Kumekuwa na mambo ya kwamba kuna investigation ambayo inazunguka hapa na pale. We are seeing some peers which has resurfaced in Eldoret and all that. Now the ICC has distanced itself from this. Why do you want to do politics with such serious issues are very emotive?
But you know, bad behavior is good politics, right? You know that. That for politicians, bad manners is very good politics. If you have got good manners, you're not a good politician. That's how it just works. Ever since ICC was weaponized by both people who played around the ICC thing, we were talking about, you remember when we went to Naivasha to come up, and yesterday I was trying to just review my thinking around, or rather my reading around the Naivasha Hansard, looking at the argument that went in to give us the constitution that we have. Every time I look at that and the arguments behind why every article we have in the constitution, the justification behind the wordings and why it was actually put there, I realized that Naivasha was the worst decision we ever made as a country. Of course, a good thing came out there. Unless you are an outrightly pessimist human being, there is always a positive in every situation. So a few guys looked at 207 and realized that there was an opportunity to ascend to power without necessarily working hard. They pushed Naivasha to go a certain way. The people who were expected to lose out of that particular process realized that publicity is publicity, good or bad.
Any publicity is positive publicity. It doesn't matter how it looks like.
So they flipped the chapati and turned the game on those other guys. Those guys have never recovered. And BBI is actually, there's a guy called, I don't know, this Edward Spiff or something. He has written a paper that is quite common for guys who do peace studies and conflict. It's called Give War a Chance. Edward argues that sometimes it's important to give war a chance. Watu wapigane waheshimiane. Unakumbuka kama sisi ni wadogo tulikuwa tunasema wacha watu waheshimiane.
Fungiane shule.
Watu wapigane waheshimiane.
Tuweke heshima kwa hiki.
Edward argues that in Europe there was always a war after every 25 years. In 1919 when we had the First World War was coming to an end, there was no clear winner or loser. But by the time we go to 1938, 1939, the Second World War came. He argues that the only reason why Europe has enjoyed about 80 years of complete peace has been because war was given a chance. It was fought to its logical conclusion. Now, there is a continuation. Naivasha, the war in Naivasha showed up in 2013 a little bit. It is now showing up now through the handshake again. Because what people hoped that changing the instruments of a country, the things that help us undertake the management of public affairs, primarily the constitution, were to help them, as in to them, it's an, unajua kama hapa kwako, you call the shots.
Yeah.
So some people think that this country is niao. You can always change the rules of the game and get around that. That's how it's actually reflecting today. So the same thing can actually be seen through ICC. ICC is now a scarecrow. That wewe ukienda tu kuongea saa hizi vile tunaongea hapa, ukisema tu maneno fulani unaambiwa hapo kwa comments ICC is watching. It's now a scarecrow to a level where as in ukienda kusema kitu yoyote the same way, and I'm sorry to say this, the same way the current government in Rwanda is dealing with genocide. That all other rights have become subservient. Every conversation and every dialogue, freedom to speech, the genocide comes on top, everything else goes under. And in that way, we are trying to bury out progress. We do not want to allow progress, people to move on. So it's good that ICC is actually speaking, and I hope that they have got very clear communication, especially in a country where they've been like here, where any particular thing, people really want to ICC-nize everything. But you can't even just argue your point without being reminded about ICC. You cannot disagree even when your rights are being taken away, because you will be you will be ICC-nized. Your conversation is ICC-nized. Our thinking and everything has to be conditioned into that straight jacket. We have to leave it. Yeah.
All right. Areba.
I wouldn't agree much. I wouldn't really have anything useful to say, but as Arnold has said, is that we probably need to just move on. And we have our politics in that even locally it's weaponized, in that when you speak against a particular person, then you might just want to see whether you filed your tax returns and whether kuna siku ulitusi mutu and whether simu yako iko na airtime, because you never know what comes out next. We need to move away from those politics where we weaponize everything. In that the moment then we disagree with somebody who is thought to be the powers that might be, then there are repercussions. And we have seen it locally. There is that perception that if there's somebody who ako kwa mrengo fulani, akijaribu kufanya kitu atakujiwa. And even the ICC debate, it looks like there is an angle that is taking this before elections, and this is meant to evoke more emotions and probably try to put brakes on some people's ambitions. And I wish, and I always prayed this, that it will come to a time in this country where Arnold and I can disagree and it ends there. We disagree on an issue, and I don't have to know how many girlfriends Arnold has, and I don't have to go and dig down and know where Arnold sleeps over the weekend. And I don't have to start questioning Arnold, ile pesa yenye ako nayo alitoa wapi. So that the moment we just disagree on principles, that is it. Tunamalizia hapo. It's never personal. We live for another day. I hope as a country we can one day get there.
All right, let's come back to the issue ambayo mlikuwa mmeanza kuichangamkia. Yesterday at the Bomas of Kenya, there came up a question raised by one young man from Kitale. Akauliza, likasema, in the 21st century we should not be seeing 16th century one-wheeled machines roaming around. What are your comments on that, Maliba?
Number one, even before you talk about a comment around that, I think the whole statement was a very ignorant position. It's not informed by education for the very simple basics. So I'll actually just help Alex and any other person who is sharing that statement. Number one, the wheel was discovered about 3,500 years before Christ. 3,500 BC. That is when the wheel was discovered. The wheel was initially discovered to help the potters kutengeneza pot. It took human beings another 300 years for people to figure out that a wheel can actually be used on chariots. The wheelbarrow, of course, so from 38 BC, human beings started using wheels on chariots. Practically, what we call a wheelbarrow today was first used in China around 200 AD. That is 1,400 years away from Alex's figure about 1,600 technology. It was first used in China. It was used during war to supply military supplies during a war, and the path was so thin. So the dates and everything around it, of course, there's a bigger point of what he was trying to say. even that one I'll come to it and actually just deconstruct it. But he got his dates wrong in the first place. The wheel was here before Christ, 3,000. So it's actually 5,000 years. That's the first time the wheel shows up around here. It takes 300 years before human beings can use them on chariots. And then by the time what we look at as a wheelbarrow today is used in a war in China at some point in 200 AD. 200 years after Christ has been here, that's when the first time human beings use something that looks like a wheelbarrow on very narrow ridges at that particular time. So, they say necessity is the mother of all inventions.
Yes.
So that's when it is used at that particular level. But to argue that those particular inventions and technologies, I want to ask you, do you know when human beings or organisms started breathing? Breathing is a 2-year billion ritual that we have been doing. So do we get tired of breathing? Just wake up in the morning and decide today I'm not going to breathe because it's a very old thing. It's a 2 billion. When I know there is when you talk about singularity, that's where the problem comes in between science and religion. But from whatever you look at, when we started breathing, if you look at that anthropological calendar as you move up, we started breathing, or organisms, when we left the water and started coming out here, we started breathing. Bacteria learned to breathe, to use oxygen 2 billion years ago. That is a 2 billion year ritual that we do every day continuously and we don't stop. The principles of physics are the same. Do we stop using them because they're just old? They're not old. That thinking was actually warped. It wasn't. It was a cheap jibe. And of course, I know that the whole essence about the wheelbarrow conversation is that can we look at those other people who are in that economy? And there's the alternative economy every day. If Areba here cannot get money in court, he will use his legal learning to get money elsewhere. And if the mainstream market does not provide for him, he looks very strong. If this man actually carries a gun and anakwambia toa kila kitu uko nayo utatoa, that's an alternative economy. Now, there are human beings in this country, and a lot of them, by the way, the formal sector stopped being the leading job creator in 1992. Some of us were either 3 years, 2 years, or 4 years. A number of them here were not born. These guys here holding cameras were not even born. In 1992, that is when the formal sector stopped being the leading job creator. By the way, you need to look at KRA. KRA has got about 4.5 active taxpayers. As a country, we have got a workforce of 18 million. Where are these other 14 million human beings? Why are they not within the taxable bracket? It's because they're in the informal sector. The informal sector is employing everybody. And when we talk about the informal sector, these are guys, wanachoma mahindi, wanachoma, and you know about those jokes about kukula ile muturaya, muturaya wale
pachafu.
Yeah, hapo jioni hapo.
Anasema muturaya itaki usafi.
And those guys are actually working out. It's a sector that has kept them away from, and it is working, by the way.
They're feeding their families.
So do we have an alternative? And I'm talking about a structured alternative. No. So normally you strengthen what you have even as you build the other bit of it. So the statement about wheelbarrows yesterday was a cheap jibe. It was not informed even by history in the first place. So factually it was wrong. It didn't even have sense in my application, because I expect Alex as a political scientist to understand a little bit of political economy, to understand a little bit of public administration. The guy, as in his argument, it was ni mchongo no, as in anyone would have done that. You didn't need to be a political scientist like himself and get such like a platform kufanya mchongo no kama hiyo kwingine. And using stronger language, he simply was in for we call it a dick measuring contest. Yeah.
very, very quickly, Alex is my very good friend. But I think that at times we need to put logic in what we say when we're given such a podium. I had a very long conversation with some of my friends last night on the wheelbarrow and the hand-cut economics. And I have some very interesting video here when I was leaving a particular place yesterday, heading to another place, and I saw somebody pushing a hand-cut full of vegetables and fruits. And I posted that in one of our groups and asked, hii mmesema kwenu inabebonga na Ford Ranger. And of course there was a whole conversation around it as to then how we need to carry those vegetables around. I mean, these wheelbarrows and hand cuts are not being given to Bitok or Maliba. And sometimes I fully understand the pain that political people go through. Sometimes you meet people and you ask them, what is your problem? And somebody tells you, shida yangu tu ni 50 bob. Or somebody tells you, my problem is that just give me a wheelbarrow, just give me a handcart. Do you want to go and buy a Pro Box for them? There are people, since they came into this town, theirs is to pick vegetables from Marikiti Market, Wanaibeba hadi Nairobi West. And if you've used Uhuru Highway out of town on the side from Haile Selassie, in the morning there's some bit of snarl up by people who are pushing vegetables from Marikiti to feeding the sides of Nairobi West, Rongai, and all those sides. And those people need our support. When sometimes we try to trivialize other people's livelihood and other people's way of making a living in this town, then I mean we lose it. Of course, and I share this sentiment that we need to get back and assess when the rain started beating us as a country. When did we have so many young people who are well learned pushing handcarts and doing mjengo? Now they need wheelbarrows and everything. We need to have that conversation. But then before we finish on that conversation, they need support. Currently, there is a team that went to the deputy president and said, Sisi, where we live, all we need are handcarts. Did you want him to buy them Ford Rangers? Uko kwa mjengo yenu huwa mnabeba matofali na Mercedes. So sometimes let's put logic in what we speak. And whoever was throwing that jibe, he's a student of politics, and he always goes to the village all the weekends, and he gets to interact with the people. When you get such a platform, please look at what you're speaking. And sometimes we are ashamed to associate with what you say because you are our friend. You don't lose that a platform in attacking other people. Just make sense of what you speak and move on.
Actually, there is a bigger problem with that statement. This was a young man who was speaking on behalf of the youth of this country. 13.7 million people. I need to repeat that. That Alex yesterday was speaking for 13.7 million young people. People aged between 18 and 34. I'll not go to 35 because that's not what we have always misread Article 260 on how it actually defines youth. 13.7 million people. Even as he spoke to that, this government and the subsequent governments in the past have not been in a position to provide alternative means. That is why people are selling what they are doing. People, watu wako mjengo, watu wanauza vitu zingine zote. And I need to say this repeatedly, that 89% of the people who are jobless and therefore involved in those alternative stuff, if you talk about 89% of anyone, when we talk about joblessness in this country, 89% are youth. Same thing that 92% of the people who are poor are youth. You get an alternative, you get a platform to articulate the issues of young people. And then you ignore the very core of the people in whose name you speak. That little bit, it's good politics, like I have told you. Bad manners is good politics. So politically, Alex scored very well. We are even discussing him here. People are finding out who he is and such. So politically, he did it. At the tactical level, he got it right. But if we talk about representation-wise, that was a flop.
He got a zero.
Because for young people, he didn't speak for them.
All right. Nimeona huko Isaac hapa anasema even here in Finland, every household has a wheelbarrow. All right. That's interesting. Tukisonga, I want to give you guys an opportunity to review the different statements that are made by the three leaders, or actually across board, where you think you picked all the way from Uhuru Kenyatta, Raila Odinga to Musalia Mudavadi. Just a quick review of the statements that are made. I'll start with you, Maliba.
I'll start with Mudavadi. As usual, he came off as the cat with reason, the wise old trying to implode to people who are high on other stuff. You know, BBI to some individual is actually like bang or some drug. People are so high on it. They are not on earth. They are walking. Unaona ile mtu anatembea ni kama anatembea kwa hewa. There is a group and a clique of human beings who are in this country who are so high on BBI. So they walk like they are flying. They are not even, their feet are not, they are just, the earth is rolling under them. So Mudavadi, of course, came off trying to bring up some sense of saying that it's true, we have good problems as a nation. An attempt at having dialogue the way we are doing is the right way to go. But is how, everything is not just about what or even why the why is there. You don't need to tell anybody why we need national conversation, why we need a national dialogue, why we will need a process again that brings us together to speak. There is a why. It's clearly explained. The what is very clear. Whether you call it BBI, whatever you want to call it, it's there. The challenges has always been in the how. And Mudavadi tried to speak to the how. Like, let us bring everybody on board. Let us be careful not to walk back and claw back on what we had missed out. Then comes in the deputy president. Probably he was the only person. He only, as in, now you realize what one man can do. Just one individual. So he came in to speak for the others. Of course, the whole speakers who had been given around that, remember Atwoli shouting, Musitishwe, Shenzi. And you know, nani ndio Atwoli alikuwa anaita Shenzi. A national gathering, you are insulting people. Alikuwa anatukana nani Shenzi? Of course, you know whom alikuwa anaita Shenzi. Akisema Musitishwe, you know whom he was trailing as. Sasa, let us go back. Nani wamekuwa akitishia watu when BBI started? Who has been talking about deep state? We have got the system. When I say these things, the past, nani amekuwa kitishwa? Again, that is an answer that I will leave to you to actually make out on who should actually be. Ni sisi tunastahili kusema tusitishwe because we have been told your vote does not even count. Imagine an aspiring democracy like ours. We no longer now want to value the people. We are talking about systems. We are talking about deep state. We want to talk about such state. That is my departing point with BBI. Because the why and the what for me were okay. We got it wrong when we got to the how. That we will go, it doesn't matter whether you support it or not. Proposing extra democratic processes, like we have got the system, we have got deep state, and people who are Democrats of yesterday, who were talking about social justice, who are talking about tenets of democracy, all of a sudden are telling us that so long as we have got the system, it is okay. But Areba will know that practically, in the business of just making money, I do strategy for politics. And I know that you cannot rig anyone if they do not have 50, at least 49%. If you're going to rig anyone, you do not need more than 2.5%. That's how you can be helped. It's almost biblical that ule mwenye ako naye anaongezewa. But if you can't make that level, so we are being told that votes don't matter. We are being told that the voice of the people doesn't matter. That Article number 1 of our constitution that says that all sovereignty and sovereign power belongs to the people is useless. There are few people can meet in some dark, smoky rooms with big cigars and big bottles of alcohol, and they can decide for the rest of us. 47 million of us can actually sit down and people will decide. Already bastardizing the very essence. I know that we are a republic, but we are not yet a nation. But BBI and the way they are doing BBI bastardizes the very, very idea we are trying to talk about to birth. Unataka kuogesha mtoto na unaleta vumbi. That's what as in the why and the what is okay. The how is the problem. Probably even the people handling it is where the problem is. So William comes in and is asking very serious questions. Though from where I sit from, I look at them as very elementary questions. Like when you go to an interview and people asking us, tell us about yourself. How, as in, we have not even gotten to the real job that we'll be doing at that particular place. Those are the questions William was asking yesterday. And you realize that the crowd was intolerant, shouting him down, telling him to respect the president, and there was too much. All speakers who came in, except a few, were taking shots at them. I will actually even go back to somebody like Wetangula and say Wetangula actually spoke quite progressively. And of course, he pointed out the why then the vote was okay. And he said there were gaps, of course. He said, do not say defeat BBI. Talk about improve. Don't stop BBI. Can we improve? So there's always room for improvement in everything. So the process, like I've said, the why, you know, talk why we need a national dialogue, right? You know that we are not doing well. You know that there are no jobs. You know that we are still an aspiring democracy.
So do we need documents or we need initiatives, tangible initiatives?
That's what I already told you, that you cannot implement this thing as it is. There's no implementation matrix. It's a mixture of so many things. And a lot of these things, I'm actually doing a policy brief on this, a detailed one. A lot of these are actually programmatic in my opinion. You do not need BBI to realize that so many guys come out of college and they don't get jobs, and help is on their neck. You do not need BBI to just do things right. Already there's Article 10. What stops Uhuru from having an all-inclusive government? We have got a constitution that says that. So it's not about rules, it's not about these documents. And this is not a very different it's not even unique. We have got so many other reports that have come and we have actually benched them. I know and I hear people say that Kenya makes a very good policies and then the implementation is the problem. If a policy cannot be implemented, it's not a good policy. The first characteristic of a bad policy is that it cannot be implemented. So, however well, probably we just do good grammar. But they are not good policies.
We just paint the English.
So this could look like the others. Then the president shows up. I am actually happy that William represented so many millions who did not have a chance because all speakers were vetted. Everything that was said there, by the way, if you have spoken at national events, you know that those speeches are normally vetted. So every jibe that you saw there did not come by somebody showing up from their home and speaking. No. All their speeches were guided. That's a presidential event. They always are vetted. So whoever vetted and whoever organized that allowed for the jeering William, organized and steered everything towards that end to paint him as such. But like I said, bad manners is good politics. So if they want us to play politics, anyone can play it from whatever end. So William asks question, he stood his ground, and you really have to admire that human being. That 6,000 people, about 20 people who spoke ahead of you, are all going in a certain manner. You are the target. And he stood up, he spoke, he ignored even when they wanted to stop him. The whole idea was to drown him so that he doesn't go. He asked the most important questions, and I think that was the highlight. In fact, we are joking that the guys who did BBI, because they didn't even declare that now we have officially launched it or this is the way forward or anything, since William stole the event yesterday, they can actually organize another one without him, a proper one, so that then they can sing their choir continuously because he spoiled their harmony. He brought in a different voice. That is one man. Just imagine the rest of the other human beings here. And then there's the duopolizing of this debate. That if you ask questions about BBI, then automatically you are against BBI. So you are either pro Tanga or Kieleweke, depending on the questions you are. So if you support some elements of BBI, like I think I am quite okay with reworking how our governance is. The only thing I have issues with is strengthening a parliament that was already too strong. And they have utilized, the Constitution 2010 took away power from everybody. They introduced checks and balances for everyone, except Parliament, because we thought that in their multiplicity of numbers, it would be so hard to control them. We have realized we were wrong. So that if you support an element here, then you automatically are pro BBI. If you ask questions, you are supporting William. We cannot dualize a national dialogue. There should be more. There should be more avenues and fronts and platforms on where people can speak. But I'll tell you, yesterday, William spoke like he was speaking for the CSO sector. He spoke like he was speaking for the civil society. He spoke like he was speaking for the economists. He spoke like he was speaking for the youth. One man represented the interests of so many people. Just imagine they allowed, so that it doesn't look like it's a William versus Uhuru thing, that they allowed other people with divergent views or people who are bringing in value addition to the conversation. Rather than drowning Musalia and just ensuring that Weta will always cause problems, you ensure that you bring Wamunyinyi. You know those games? That we want Weta here, but we will bring him...
It's tackle.
No, the thorn. When Paul talks about the thorn in his flesh, that doesn't go away. So they bring it around here so that Weta is
managed.
And that the only stars are the president and the other principal, the other headmaster who is Raila on the other side. That was wrong. So then William shows up and he spoils the party and people have good feelings. Yeah. So I think the president then comes in and then, of course, he tries to balance out so that he thaws the feelings. But he still goes ahead to paint William as the reason why things are not all there. So generally for me, of course, like I said when I began, BBI was underwhelming yesterday. The conversations by those three people, of course, the only one person they allowed, and that is the problem they did. Just imagine we had so many other people speaking, questioning. It would not have been about William alone. Now they just made him that you try to control the whole thing, and the process is that you do not control the outcome. Now, if you look at all the headlines, you look at Taifa Leo, and I think Taifa Leo is one of the best newspapers. I am learning to love it. The way they put their headlines, Ararua BBI. Because this thing you have given us here is a mishmash of stories that don't need to take us all these stories and the resources we are putting in. There are better ways of actually addressing these issues. We have failed. We have not done these things. And now we are pretending that one special moment when two people say hi to each other. Of course, the handshake was important. But this is not what we really wanted them to do. They've come up with things, they have spoiled everything. Like I'll tell you about youth issues. For me, because that is, I'm so passionate about it. I have most of my adult years, as an adult, I have worked for and with young people for most of my adult years. So I've worked for my generation and with my generation. Everything that pertains to young people in this country is either dysfunctional, underfunded, or it does not have leadership. I can mention just a few to you. The National Employment Authority is the biggest thing for so many young people because they're looking for jobs. The president went ahead, and do you know what he did? He elected Meru Wambui to it. People went to court. A few of us went to court. The court granted us victory. I can tell you that the state is actually appealing. And for 1 year, today marks, I think, 1 year and 4 days, since the president appointed Meru Wambui, that thing does not have a chair. The National Employment Authority, and unemployment is a big issue in this country, does not have a chair for a whole year. Youth Fund does not have a substantive CEO. Uwezo Fund does not have even a board. The National Youth Council does not have a council. For 3-4 years now, continuously, they're just playing around with the issues. And I will go on. The only thing that is working is where there's a little bit of money, where there's still a lot. The National Youth Service.
That was.
Everything else is either stolen. And they have dismembered the youth function in this country so badly. So the youth as a policy, the youth policy as a function is at the Ministry of Public Service. The State Department for Youth is in ICT. The National Youth Service is in Public Service. National Youth Council is at ICT. So, and normally you know that policy follows functions, and that is how funding is done. Youth officers on the ground have no job they're doing. Youth centers across the country, the 153 of them that were built by Kibaki, have either been turned into churches. I went to Kirinyaga, I found all youth centers are actually churches. Other places they have turned into places where bats meet and animals and such like stuff. So in other places, young people, of course, have taken so the whole youth function for the last 8 years, it has been bastardized. It has not been worked on very well. And that is why the conversation around wheelbarrows and hustlers is actually coming out. That for 8 years, we dropped the ball from where Kibaki had been. That it has taken us 7 years to renew, to review just a youth policy. 7 years to review. We were to review this policy in 2012. From 2012, we have not had a functional and valid national youth policy until last year, and after so many wars. So there is nothing about young people that want. Even Kazi Mtaani, this Kazi kwa vijana that has been baptized a different name, is not even being coordinated from the ministry or any function of youth. It's actually at the Ministry of Housing and Urban Planning.
Interesting.
It's about youth, it's about elsewhere. So everything about the youth is scattered. Youth mainstreaming policy that was really hailed was never done. To do a survey on skills that are needed and anything was never done. Out of the 13 promises the Jubilee made to the youth in 2013, they only fulfilled 1.2. In 2017, they got clever and they refused to talk about youth. We asked them, where's the youth manifesto? They refused to talk about it because they had failed in 2013. So this conversation is not going to go away. I know from a political perspective, it is dangerous to have a class war. But that's exactly what we are doing. We would rather have this conversation
than hide behind the veil.
You know, if you are sick and you don't talk about it, it doesn't mean that you stop being sick. But if you are sick and you speak about it...
Because you don't want to cause a conflict between the sick and the healthy people.
Henry Ford will tell you that if you speak about it, then that is a half a solution. So when we speak about it, that's a half a solution. Now, can we go to the next level and take care of the other bit?
All right. You've not dissected Raila Odinga's speech.
Raila just said that he spoke to Nzamba Kitonga 4 days before he died. At least that's what I remember.
Well, I mean, it's a big challenge.
Areba Samba.
It's a very big challenge to speak after Arnold, considering that he's remarkable English and he's well read, and I've been reading his work. So you put me in a very awkward situation that I have to speak after him. Probably just going forward, I should be speaking so that then Arnold and Areba Maliba. But I want to fully associate with his sentiments when it comes to the issue of youth factor. And I've also had keen interest in the youth spaces because I'm still one. And it pains me to see people we closely associate with or people who look up to us suffering courtesy of broken promises and a deprived future. And then when you look at this document and you realize that there's some kind of sweets which have been thrown out to young people. And that is why we are having this conversation that... I mean, we can have a...
Who and you are you going to review? How many personalities?
I'm going to review everybody. I have the list here. And I just want to pick from where he left, in that even if today we were to pass this document as it is, still the Youth Commission, as suggested in this document, might not see the light of the day. We are going to have a 67-year-old sitting at the helm and probably a dysfunctional board. That is how the youth sector in this country has always been deprived. Before we got on air, we were having a conversation with him as to how the private sector in this country is not able to come into empowering the youth factor, because they really don't know which is the entry position when it comes to government. In that there are so many entry levels, and nobody is ready to support them. I mean, we have the NYC, I don't know, we have the State Department of Youth, the Office of the Deputy President also has a person handling youth affairs. There is a youth advisor at State House. There is a youth advisor also at State House in Nyambane, and the ministry. And all this, it's a whole lot of confusion in terms of how these issues are being handled. So, I mean, for young people who are listening to us, there is no clear guideline on how the issue of joblessness and the issue of the issues bedeviling young people are going to be solved in this document. That one I can tell you for sure. Because, I mean, while other people have been given cows out there, wanakula nyama na wanakula minofu, sisi tumepewa salad. So that tusaidie kusukuma hii gari ya BBI kwenda mbele.
I think you're wrong.
Why?
We have not been given salad.
What have we been given?
Watu wanakaa wanakula nyama. Sisi tumeweka kwa bouncing castle huku nje. Hata chips
wanacheza.
Tuko kwa bouncing castle, watu wakubwa wanakula nyama. Sisi tumeweka kwa bouncing castle na youth advisor. Bouncing castle.
You are jumping down, unaambia ngoja tutawaita.
Tuko kwa bouncing castle, hakuna hata salad.
Which is a big, I mean, the issue of help, just as I go to analyze the speeches, we have been writing off loans for, I don't know, tea farmers, coffee farmers, sugar farmers, running into billions. I'm told right now the outstanding debt in terms of help loans is around 6 billion or 7 billion, which is even less than ile fare yenye watu wamekula huko nje. It is estimated that ile fare inakula kila mwaka it amounts to 15 billion. I'm not very sure.
The history ya fare muumia hii town sana.
The amount of hata hiyo wakati wa COVID, the amount that was withheld as fare ilikuwa around 10 billion. Anyway, so why can't we just have this help as a grant? I mean, members of parliament previously have been given grants to buy vehicles. Why do we think that if we're giving a young person 15,000 kila mwaka, kila semester kusoma shuleni, they need to pay it back? This can be a grant.
And we have written off loans for farmers.
Yeah.
Coffee, how many times?
Tea,
sugar cane and everything else.
Why is help now being an issue that you are being given, I don't know, a moratorium or a what? What if you don't get that job? What happens? So I mean, the issues of young people are not fully addressed in this document. They have just been clouded. Back to the speeches of yesterday. Mudavadi, of course, this is the diplomat, the just calm, collected person who doesn't want to annoy anybody, who just wants to please everybody, who looks like he's making sense and just wants to carry the day. When you look to Wetangula, he was very reasonable. Of course, having come from the fights of with Wamunyinyi, he didn't have another option but just to be very reasonable.
And they brought Wamunyinyi there to manage him.
in what he was saying.
The control function.
We come to my very good friend and senior, Kalonzo Musyoka. I think that sometimes Kalonzo, you are not able to understand him. I don't know, I don't want to use that word, but understanding Kalonzo is quite a big challenge. I mean, you saw he in his speech, of course, taking a swipe at the deputy president, and at some point saying that, oh, we have all read this and let's pass this, saying that BBI was a solution to all the problems that we have in this country. As a person at the stage of Kalonzo Musyoka, who has been a vice president in this country, he needed to really express some restraint in terms of making a recommendation that hii tumesoma wacha tupitishe. So understanding Kalonzo yesterday was a bit challenging, but then again I understand that this is a person, a very good friend, who has been credited with the aspect of kupita katikati yao. So at the end of the day lazima apite. I wouldn't say what Atwoli said It was just noisy and messy, not much content. And all he said, I mean, was the shenzi na wafanyakazi tuko nyuma yao. But I don't know whether he represented the views of the young man I saw walking from Kibera to industrial area this morning. I don't know whether he represented the views of some ladies I saw somewhere in Kilimani sitting outside and waiting to be called to do some house chores in the morning. I don't know whether he represented their views. But according to Atuoli, all those I've said, hii kitu iko sawa, tupitishe. To the extent which he represents them, I am not very sure, but your guess is as good as mine. You go to the brother in the handshake, Raila, the deputy of Jesus Christ. When he spoke, I think, of course, he was really putting a lot of emphasis on passing this document. Remember, this is quote unquote his document. This is a document that he has put in a lot of effort for. So he didn't have another option but to really try to put a lot of emphasis in this. Just the statement I made earlier about him. This is a statement I got from some of his people in Kisumu when they were putting a hierarchy in this country. They were saying the hierarchy ni Yesu, Uhuru, alafu Baba. So he's more like the deputy of Jesus Christ. When you go to the deputy president, WSR, I mean, he took that opportunity to air out his views on what he didn't really want, like the views of what in his humble submission, as he called it, was not right in that document. And he highlighted issues that we've been highlighting, the issue of the JSC. I am on record on saying that already the president has a considerable representation at the JSC. Now, coming up with an extra role as the ombudsperson, which is an executive appointee to the judiciary, this is just a clawback on the independence of the judiciary. So the deputy president, I mean, he braved the storm and decided to have that unpopular conversation after everybody had sung in the same tune. And at the end of the day, those issues that nobody wanted to raise them or which couldn't find themselves in the podium at the Bomas of Kenya finally found themselves on the podium. Which again, when I move on to the next, President Uhuru Kenyatta, you realize he didn't read his formal speech. Which probably was not responding to the issues of the day. Sometimes you go to a function and you have a very well-crafted speech, which meant to address one or two, but the speaker before you decides to throw in some Inno into the water. And when you throw Inno into the water, you see how the water is disturbed. So he had to respond on the particular issues. And remember, the president said that no idea is how can I call it, is superior, which he said that let us all sit down and improve on these ideas that we all have, so that at the end of the day we can give value for Kenyans. He even admitted to have also participated in tribal politics, which to me was a winner for the day, that the president moved away from his very well-crafted speech by some of our friends in the House on the Hill and addressed the real issues which were there. And at the end of the day, I'm glad that tension eased and they all walked out looking like the happy couple plus the stepmother that they're meant to be. Yeah. I believe, I mean, at the end of the day, you know, when they all spoke and the president said that he feels that his deputy is running in the opposite direction, these are issues that we have all been sweeping under he has been sweeping under the carpet. He has never got that opportunity to say it. But now, whether it's right or wrong, I feel that was an icebreaker. But then, as I've said before, the president and his deputy still have a year plus in office. And I had some speaker yesterday saying that it's high time that the president sat his troops down and also recommends that his brother in the handshake also gets to sit his troops down so that we can go back to adding value for the people. That is what matters in this country.
All right. News Justin is that there's a corona outbreak in Kwale High School. Wamefanya leo mass test. Inasemekana kwamba kuna corona outbreak pale Kwale High School. So by the way, tujichunge. Na ndio pia kimeanza kuumana. I think things are really running high and crazy back then. So let's look at the issues that were raised as we also opening bunge la mwenyeji. Bunge la mwenyeji iko wazi. Bunge la mwenyeji iko wazi. Unaweza piga simu 0779-800-010 0779-800-010. Bunge la mwenyeji iko wazi 0779-800-010 0779-800-010 0779-800-010. All right, let's look at the issues that have been raised in the same document, Maliba.
Yeah.
And I think those issues that mainly was raised by the Deputy President on the issues of the Senate, the strength of the issue of the independence of judiciary and the politics in it. We're also looking at mambo ya help. There umeshagonga muona mambo magonga help, that you don't need help to fix the issues that we have with youth. The issues that were raised. What are your thoughts on the same issue that are being from BBI? Or personally, what do you think are the problems of BBI?
Like I've told you, why we need BBI or a process that has got a name like BBI is obvious. We need a handshake after 2017 because you remember the swearing in and the feeling around that. The problems are out there, okay? People feeling like the problems are stated. The problem statement as put forth by the TORs that employed the BBI team were quite clear. I still have got a problem in the how, because how you do it, and this is a cliche we've had, of course, all of us have had, that if you do things the same way repeatedly and expect different outcomes, then you are mad. I see us doing the same thing with BBI. First of all, when a few people sit, and you've just spoken about the corona outbreak in Kwale. You remember that at the height of COVID, only people associated with a certain side will break rules around COVID, and COVID will not, quote unquote, get them. But any other person ukifanya mkutano yako, hata kama mko watu 15 peke yake, wewe hapo COVID iko. But people meet, wanakunywa mpaka pombe, wanafanya hizo vitu zingine zote, but haikuwa na COVID. So we are trying to reintroduce the impunity of old in trying to take care of these problems that have been here. And the problems we have here are not new. The problems of inclusion, they are really not new. So let me ask some of the questions, because we didn't have, and I would really have loved to have been there. I actually was invited, but I would really have loved to ask a few questions if there was an open session, to ask a few questions. If you talk about taking care of the issue on the winner takes it all, do you know the person who spoke on behalf of county assemblies? Who was he?
I saw some lady.
No, it was a man. You remember that guy who spoke on behalf of County Assemblies Association?
Okay. I can't remember his name, but I remember him speaking.
His name is coming. Where does he come from? Anyway, I'll just tell you this. What tribe is the president of Kenya? What is the tribe of the person who leads county assemblies? This is my point. That if I can get 50% plus one vote to become president, it is also likely that I have got a majority of MPs in parliament. I also have got a majority of MCS. So the inclusion bit of it is not taken care of unless we are telling us that with more seats around there, we are trying to come up, as in we are giving the leader of the country more places to park people. So this is what I'm saying, that BBI does not take care of that particular issue. Either we accept that we administer our resources and public management, or rather the management of public affairs differently, to a level where it doesn't matter who is in power, because that's where the problem is. But we are not going to take care of the winner takes it all by coming up with this formula proposed here, that you have got a prime minister who is appointed by the president, right? A deputy prime minister the same, and then he has got a DP. So does it change? This report does not address that, because the phrasing of the question is wrong. You cannot, if you are doing research, right? The research question is wrong. You cannot. The data you get after that is useless. So the how we are doing these things there beats it out. Judiciary, the president has always complained about, and I know. Let us give the president some. They say give the devil his due. There is no one who has got experience in implementing this constitution more than Uhuru Kenyatta today. So far, he's the only person who has been with this constitution for 7 years trying to implement it. So we can give him a benefit of doubt. Like we always say, that if the alligator comes out of water one morning and tells you that the crocodile is dead, you live on land, you will not doubt the alligator. But that does not stop you from asking questions. How did the crocodile die? Why did he die when he lives in water? Where were you at that particular time? So asking questions does not necessarily mean you doubt the whole process. You just want to better understand it. So the president has complained about judiciary continuously. We have stiffed them of budgets. We have treated them like the poor members of a family. You know, if you are poor in a family, watu wote wanaongea baadaye unapatiwa Sprite. Hata kuna mtu anakuuliza unapatiwa tu Crest. That is how we have treated judiciary continuously, giving them less budgets, revisiting them and doing all those things. Ignoring court orders. Now, all of a sudden, we have got ideas. You know, if you have not implemented this constitution, especially in aspects that do not kill you, and we talk about the common pools, like, what does it hurt the president to be to abide by the law? And remember, amongst, I know you didn't swear to protect the constitution. You didn't. But the president swore, and he signed on that oath. But he breaks laws with impunity. He ignores court orders. What is going to happen is that myself and Areba here will also start ignoring court orders. We are bringing in anarchy. If rulers do not abide by the law, they're encouraging anarchy. So when you break the law, but the president can get around. That is impunity. So he is not helping the process. So judiciary sneaking in some ombudsman where the executive is actually appointing. It's just speaking to the point that the president has not appointed the judges. How many? Is it a year now?
Yeah, it's a year.
There's actually someone who was said that the draft states that the 5 senior positions in the executive should be from different tribes and regions. I don't know whether have you seen that?
How many tribes are we in this country? We are 53. Not even the 42 tribes we talk about. We are 53 properly, if you count. And they could actually go up to 72 because there are other people who still consider themselves not part and parcel of the tribes there. They are called there. So today, effectively, we are about 53 tribes. So you take 5 positions. Already the way we are in here, we are almost 4. We are almost 4 tribes. Do you think we really represent this country very well?
And is there a section like that actually in the report?
Yeah, it is. Okay. But it is in this current constitution also. In Article 10.
And what is actually stopping the government from balancing the cabinet and appointment?
That any particular time you are doing anything in this country, so long as it's public, it should have number 1 face of Kenya. It should be all inclusive. Article 10 is there. What has stopped the president today from doing that? What has stopped him from being just? What stops Uhuru Kenyatta from just doing what the Constitution 2010, a very progressive one, tells us to do? There's nothing. It's just lack of political goodwill. So BBI cannot force political goodwill. BBI cannot do that. So him trying to sneak into judiciary and he's trying to just go back to the older ways of doing things. And I need to say this, that this administration has been in love with beating the system. We have got NSC, the National Security Council. The president creates NSAC, something that is not constitutional, but it bypasses NSC so that he can make decisions around there. We have got a Vision Delivery Secretariat. The president creates PDU. We have got Youth Fund, we have got Women Enterprise Fund, the president creates Uwezo Fund. This administration and the president is in love with running away with what exists. He loves duplicity, he loves duplicating. To run away from, because, this NSAC, that is chaired by... we've run away from the Security Council. Now we have got some advisory phantom team somewhere. So that they act. Pseudos. He loves creating pseudos. He even left social media, but he comes back and he complains that we say the things. So you wonder how he shows up. He's been creating.
Are you trying to say the president is running pseudo accounts?
Even in his own government. By the way,
are you saying the way running pseudo accounts?
Yes, because he has created a lot of pseudo units everywhere. He repeats a lot of them. So you have got an existing Vision Delivery Secretariat. Do you know who is even the chair of Vision 2030 today?
I'm not aware. So we have got a VDS, the president has got a PDU, doing the same thing. We have got the national... But they took the PDU into Matiang'i's staff. It's now under Matiang'i.
Now, Matiang'i's beat is what we used to call the National Economic and Social Council, NESC. You do away with NESC, you just keep quiet and you come up with something that is chaired. As in, he loves phantom stuff. As in, everything that is official, the president comes up with a counter. As in, let me probably using a harder language again, I'll tell you, the president is so Chinese. He loves counterfeits. That we have got a National Security Council, the president comes up with National Security Advisory Committee. We have got, those jokes about Sony and Scony? The president is in love with the
Nokia
pseudos.
and the
He
Nokia.
loves counterfeits. We have got a vision delivery secretariat. The president comes up with
Presidential
PDU.
delivery.
We have got vision 2030, which is a sessional paper, by the way, a cabinet sessional paper. The president comes up with very funny things. I don't want to talk about Big Four and the others. They are now Big Five because BBI is also now one of the bigs. So we are now at Big Five. It keeps on growing. So the president is in love with coming up with counterfeits. A serious Chinese for a president. I'm talking about the Chinese of all.
But he's also even borrowing the supreme leadership from the Chinese. Where you're talking about one party.
I've seen Jubilee going to benchmark with the the Communist Party in China. The other bit is IBC. You know, IBC is, we know how to vote, to do votes in this country. We know how to cast our votes. Our deliberations, our political conversations, but they are some of the most robust. We cannot even have in other countries conversations like the ones we're having here. So we know everything except counting votes. We even know how to count money.
But we cannot count our votes. Right.
So they're talking about giving parties. Today we have got about 89 registered parties. And I can tell you, in an ideal situation, with about 3,000 posts up for grabs. Are there 3,000 or about 5,000? Because 4550, as in 1450 for MCAs, plus the nomination you can add about 700 because in a country that is still patriarchal, they bring in more men. You bring in members of parliament, those about 349, right? What else? So when talking about elected leaders, they're about 3,000. Properly put, they're about 3,000. These 89 parties can get at least one. We have an IBC of 89 members. Corporate governance practice, best practice in corporate governance is that you need a leaner board to make decisions, right? So are we going? And you know, the question about IBC is serious. So we know the problem, but we are misdiagnosing it and giving wrong treatment to it. Just on the issues that are around there, about creating of jobs and everything else. We have broken rules continuously. Like, for example, when our public finance PFMA spoke about not exceeding 50% of the GDP when you are asking for loans. We already had exceeded that by the time we changed we had gone to 57 at that particular time. And we had a parliament that was doing nothing. A parliament that is doing nothing, we've broken those rules. So is it going to change? But this year we want to actually borrow 1 trillion. A trillion, you know, a trillion is gonna zero tisa. 1 trillion.
You're actually asking ourselves how many zeros it are. I think Agatha alikuwa anapiga hesabu ya jana trillions. Sijui kama alifikisha.
So we continue. So the mismanagement of our economy. Do you think this document can actually take care of the mismanagement of an economy? It cannot effectively do it. At least the way they are doing it, it doesn't take care of that. So BBI addresses itself to the issues that really matter. But how it does is where the problem is. And some of the people we are letting to actually do it and run the narrative comes off quite misguided.
As a bluff.
So I still insist that if you look at the golden circle, it has got 3 parts. In the middle you have got why, when you are teaching leadership, the why. Then you go to the how, and then the top layer is the what. So we talk about the what very effectively. We understand it very well. The why, sometimes we miss it.
The how is the problem. That's why we miss it.
But the biggest problem is the how. Because how you do something, by the way, is just important as the way you do it. And to bring in a funny thing is that, you know how you've seen that meme about a woman and a man leaving the podium, the altar, after saying, I do. And the woman is telling the man, I didn't like the tone of your I do. So it's not just about doing the right thing. It's also coming off like you are doing it the right way. Because if you do it the wrong way, even if you meant well, imagine if somebody was to save you from falling in a pit, but anakukata na panga ndio usianguke kwa nini? Kwa shimo. Okay.
Wacha tuangalie let me go through a few comments here, alafu tukirudi tunachukua simu. Bunge la mwenyeji iko wazi 07798010 Benedicto anasema pa majamaa wameniletea raha wakiwa hapo studioni watching from Lord Waka Penguria Kitale Master. But I was not surprised to see and hear the shouting led by Millie, the woman who must always shout down male politicians. Signal Kiptor anasema Africa anasema welcome to us. All right. Nimeona hapa Kenny Robinson, ask yourself this question and we'll decode BB BBI nonsense. Why does Uhuru want to leave behind an imperial president? For who? Certainly not Raila or Ruto. The launch date was not a coincidence. Uhuru at 59 years is too young to go home. They told us so. Raila is fooled by fact the difference between Uhuru and Ruto to make big in it. Uhuru will drop Raila after BBI and get fresh term to rule as an imperial president, where Raila will obviously be a leader of opposition. This cute document is coded message. Reject BBI nonsense. Jendane sama achukue to speed venom DP William Ruto dismantled. Max Kumele Samalet coming padiko hapa. Asante sana. Paris Bend ameingia. Fancy Zama, good morning fellow class unit from Kangwara. I love you guys always. Thank you. Naona Merlin Samachama, I think the cold reception the president received in Nyeri was a wake up call for him. Ajui mambo indifferent kwa ground. Huko Isa kanasema, I think I have to pay you lunch for bringing those eloquent guys. Keep getting millions of people watching. Thank you. John Yonga Sama Gerald, I love the way you articulate issues affecting mwananchi wa kawaida. Lakini jana ndugu yako tutolea kucha. All right. What's the call number? The call number is 0779 800 0779 800 That's the call in number. Kipkecha Mal was the number for bunge la mwananchi, please. Number ya bunge la mwananchi ni 0779 800 All right. Wacha tuanze na huyu. Hello, good morning. I love to kurudi tuende kwa Sam.
Hi.
Yes, morning sir.
Morning, this is Maxwell here.
Yes, Maxwell.
Yeah, now, I think yesterday was one of the best moments we ever had in this country, where ladies and gentlemen, as much as the system was choreographed in a certain way, to beat a certain man, I think William Ruto stood for me as, of course, this is what we were waiting for. Those people who believe in him, we were waiting for him now to run away from us yesterday. But I think he stood for what he believed. He stood for what is right, for what we feel. And the questions were very necessary. And I believe even the team should not assume some of the issues he raised because they're important. If we have to be one in this country, then we have to handle such issues. We cannot assume one part of the family. So long as it decides to be a polygamous father, you deal with your wife and your children. So I believe yesterday was a very open debate to the extent that Uhuru Kenyatta forgot to launch the document. So so it beats the logic as to why even the event was set in the real sense. So I believe if we continue with this open discussion and I believe in Jared, what you guys are doing here is exactly what gives us the foundation of how we should discuss issues that are affecting this country. If we say this country is mine and not yours, then it doesn't make any sense. We have to face our demons, quote unquote, live, face to face. Let's talk about it. I don't like you, it's okay. But let's discuss the things that affect this country with a very sober-minded. So after that, you go home. You don't want to like me, you don't want to love me, you go home. But we discuss the things that are common to all of us. And I think you guys continue building this consensus because out of this program of yours, my brother, I tell you, we'll have a time where all of us will face each other with reality. We discuss issues that are affecting us. This country is heading the wrong direction. Number one, as I said before in this program, we need to rewrite the history of this nation. We are living a lie. And the moment we decide to live the truth, that is the time when we will agree to speak to each other. Number two, this country, all the presidents we've had since 1963, all of them, if you allow me, I'll say they were imposed on us. They were not ours. So 2022 is a time for us, or any time of elections coming now, it's a time for Kenyans to choose or to elect a president of their own.
Thank you so much.
All these others have been imposed on us.
All right, thank you, Max. Have a good day.
Yeah.
All right, good morning. Hello, good morning. Yes. Hello.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Lakini tafadhali sema hiyo nini iko in your background.
Okay.
Tuambie. Who am I speaking to?
This is Meshach.
Yes, Meshach. How are you?
I'm good. Say hi to Maliba and Areba.
Hello, tumesalimika.
Sasa Meshach.
Poor Maliba. I can hear you lying to the country now.
You know, yesterday you were here I was hoping I would meet you so that I can strip you serious cash.
but I didn't lie to the country. Yeah.
Anasema alikuwa anakungoja kushage kabisa.
You see me talk.
Yes.
Karori treated you very nicely.
Maliba and who are doing a very good job at NYC until they decided to kidnap some NYC and whatever and put the ministry at ransom. So they scared Sirikal.
They kidnapped NYC.
Sirikal do not want to work anymore. So the work of Sirikal has been scattering the youth completely. But that's not the issue. The issue I want to bring on board is...
Yes.
I mean, according to many people, the center was DP. Much as the DP would have had points, but like he says, he is very slow, and most of his supporters are also slow.
And you bought that?
To even realize that some of the things he was busy contradicting, he spoke about them at Chatham House as one of his recommendations. Now he is busy contradicting them and confessing that he is slow, which is true if you look at it like that. And his supporters would also not find out why at that time he thought that would solve the issue of winner takes all, and now he doesn't think it can solve. Number two, the deputy talked about the wrong use of police, independence of police. Is it because he now sees that he cannot control the police anymore because he has been in power and police has been used wrongly around that time, worse than any other time? I would ask a moral question. Is it really because that is what should happen, or this is because he's seeing himself on the opposite side? Number three, he spoke about IEBC, and he thought it is not fair for some players or teams to appoint referees. But what is the difference here? Has it not been the same thing? When the Public Service Commission sent 10 names to a president speaking, and the president is going to run for his second term, and he's picking number 10 from the list and making the chair, and number 9, the deputy, and picking the people he wants out of that list. Not considering that the Public Service Commission realized that this one has performed better than anyone else. So what is different if every party who is going for election takes their commission? So I don't think, to me, that makes more sense than what we are having. Because we are still having a president appointing this guy and he's running. That is the same thing. So if it means something to DP now, I would read politics in it. It is because he might have found himself out of Jubilee and having no party, and some people have parties, including Wafula Wamunyinyi. They are going to appoint commissioners, and he is not going to appoint. I mean, that's what I see. So I think the worst thing that happened yesterday was heckling him. That was bad. I mean, there is no angle of it that would be justified. He is supposed to speak, and if at all the guys who are organizing the event deliberately left out some of the people who are supporting him without invitation, that was also wrong. There is no angle that you can look at it to find any justification. But personally, I have issues with the content that people think he raised that makes a lot of sense more than anything else.
All right, thank you.
It's just a debate like any other.
Asante Meshak. Thank you so much.
Tell Maliba to be moderate with government.
All right.
Now tuko serikali. Tuko ndani ya serikali.
Tuko ndani ya serikali. All right. Good morning. Hello, good morning.
But not personal.
Good morning. Amekuja anataka kujisikia kwa nini simu. Anyway, I'll start with Areba. Please respond. Alafu kwa sababu nilikuacha katikati. Alafu tuende kwa Maliba as we end up towards the tail end.
Maxwell has said that the biggest problem in this country is that we are living a lie. And this is something that the president did admit yesterday, in that we have had issues which are bedeviling us, but then when we get to the altar, we just pretend that those are not the real issues. And he clearly talked about tribalism, which I think, even when you look at the way our political...
Allow me to pick this last one. Alafu though ameponyoka, lakini sawa endelea.
Even if you look at the way...
Tumefunga bunge.
Even if you look at the way our political parties are, you realize that each political party is headed by a political kingpin of that particular region. Of course, save for Wetangula and Mudavadi. And I don't know who the political kingpin of Western Province is. Topic for the people. Topic for another day. So that the moment then the political kingpin becomes your political party leader, then the angle at which you look at politics is from the tribal side. And the president was clear and said, that is our biggest problem. He even went ahead and he admitted that himself, he has been a victim of that. You know, the first way of coming up with of solving a problem is, first of all, admitting that there is a problem. And now we have to really sit down and have this honest conversation on how then we are going to have an idea-driven political space. Rather than when you look at Bitok, you ask him, where does he come from? Who is the mother? Who is the uncle? And all that. So that we just judge you by the content that you have in your head, rather than where you come from and how much money you have and how many probably wives that you have. That has been the biggest problem. And I agree with Maxwell that as a country, we just have to have an honest conversation about ourselves and have true solutions for the problems that we are facing. The solutions that do not have to be in forms of booklets which are being launched all over. The solutions can come from the current laws that we have. So the moment then we have that honest conversation is when we can be able to solve our problems. I've listened to Meshach Shapley, and I think Meshach, for him, he thinks that probably the issues that were raised by the deputy president were just any other issues. But again, we're having a conversation about those issues. Nobody wanted to listen to those and to those conversations. That is why you saw the chief heckler 001, who the other time heckled the president. She was at the forefront in heckling the deputy president because issues were being raised. Just imagine a scenario where the deputy president was to go on stage and say, I have looked at the document and I agree fully with it. Thank you very much. God bless you. Then he sits down. Of course, very many people would have applauded him. Very many people would have clapped for him. But then he chose the unpopular path of bringing in the uncomfortable conversations which were not finding themselves on that particular stage.
But unpopular to who?
Unpopular to the people who were in that auditorium. And remember, Arnold, that these conversations, these are issues we have been faking. Only that we didn't get that platform with the president there to raise those issues. I remember sometimes back I've attended a presidential function, and you are being told you will ask a question, and you're being told this is the question you will ask. Then I asked, does this not beat the logic that I will ask a question and you already have a question for me? Why don't you let me ask a question that I want to ask? And you're told, unasumbua sana, hautauliza hiyo swali, we tulia. I mean, that is what people expected for the deputy president. But he chose what people didn't want to hear, which, by the way, these are issues we have been raising. These are issues the likes of Peter Wanyama, the likes of Professor Jenda, all these legal bigwigs. These are the issues they have been raising. Unfortunately, on the other side, we have not had what the senior counsel, James Orengo, has had to say, like on an issue like the independence of the judiciary. So the issues that found themselves with the deputy president are issues that have been raised before, but people didn't want them to be raised on that particular stage. But at the end of the day, they were raised and they were heard. Now, going forward, we need to really rethink whether our problems in this country are going to be solved by this booklet. As Ongoya, who has been on this show, says, he is, and he might not be a son of a Jewish prophet, but my firm thinking is that this is not the solution to the Kenyan problems. The Kenyan problems are coming from the lack of software which we can lead this country with. We have upgraded our hardware. Are we likely to upgrade another software? Otherwise, if we don't upgrade our software, 3 years down the line, we're going to have other people shaking hands and trying to come up with another document.
All right. Arnold.
Yeah. Of course, I'll respond just briefly to Maxwell and then take up to Meshach, who appears to have taken exception to a few things I've said. So, of course, Maxwell says that yesterday was one of the best days, and on his in qualifying his point, he says that the DP did not run away from them; they were waiting for him to run away from them. That speaks about something. That the DP probably, whatever he's speaking, not probably, but whatever the DP is speaking, the message he speaks embodies what so many other people feel. He's an embodiment of their dreams and desires and probably where they want to go. And that if he abandons them, then they will look for somebody else to actually, of course, the Latin have got a saying that the voice of the people is the voice of God. So I hear Maxwell say that, and I also like one thing that he said, that it's not like kind of we really want to hug each other and get moving. This is what I want to say, and state it categorically. Number one, politics is not a love affair. I don't have to love you to work with you. Politics is about pragmatism. There's the place of pragmatism, or if you are going to look at it from a philosophical point of view, but practical politics is about pragmatism. You have to balance things. There's the idealism part of it, and then there's real politics. So we don't have to love people to work with them, and that is why it's very, very possible that the civil society, for example, if it's even never used to like William, at this particular time, if we have to push something going forward, we are building partnerships. Stakeholder management is difficult. So I feel Maxwell is quite a grounded listener. I really love that kind of input. It comes off very well. So, of course, he told us to stop living a lie. It's true. We know we are living a lie. We want to go around and just pamper the whole thing. Now, I want to talk to Meshach briefly, or rather address some of the issues he has raised. He says that while I was at the National Youth Council, we took government to ransom, and the government since then has been scattering young people to move forward. I will still insist that if I am voted for, like for example, I was voted for by the youth of Nairobi. Out of the 16 people who were elected to the National Youth Council, I'm the only person who went in unopposed from Nairobi. And we're talking about Nairobi. So we were sent by young people who have got their needs and demands and their voice. If I get there and pretend that this is not what young people are saying, I would be lying. So, and if I speak what young people are telling me, and somebody in government feels that that is being held at ransom, that is wrong. He should actually have provided an alternative. The same way I told people yesterday on our show elsewhere, okay, wheelbarrows are bad. Please give young people matatus. Wheelbarrows are bad. Can we franchise our railway? Give young people a train. Give them one DMU and tell them, okay, hii itakuwa yenu. So, as in so that if I don't want you to put on that beige jacket, then why can't you, can I get you a black one? So, it's about balancing issues. Politics is about resources. Resources are finite, or like people like him who went to hizi shule za hapa juu, they are finite. As in
my friend, I went to a local primary school.
So politics are finite, and that is where the core of politics is. As in resources are finite, so we have to balance. You have heard about a statement in public administration called Pareto optimality, as in that I cannot have this without you losing something.
Yeah.
That and that is how politics is, by the way. If you're going to do public administration, that is the challenge, that you are not likely to better somebody without somebody else feeling like they have lost. But then the loss we can actually balance out. That, for example, you have got a jacket, you have got a shirt, then he probably has a t-shirt only. So tukichukua jacket kwako kama kuna baridi, umepoteza kitu lakini hujapoteza sana. That is how you balance out.
Hujaenda sana.
So that is my hope, that even as we look at these things, we try to balance out and do things. What William was asking yesterday, like I've told you, those are basic questions. He has not even submitted his counter arguments to some of those things they actually are doing. And Meshach saying that asking about why he's speaking about that. No, this issue about police brutality and William having ordered police to do this and that. I just need to say this. Unless you do not give regard to reason, not even common sense, you would be mad to assume that a deputy president had got power to command the police and everything else. The only person we know as the commander-in-chief is known, so I don't need even to mention that. And you see, the concept about justice is that justice anywhere is justice to everybody. As in to anyone. If it's to you, it should be a matter to me. So we cannot play down that yesterday I was fighting for rights, but because it's no longer about me, it is okay if other people actually face the same thing. We don't justify that. And we do not do right because it matters to us. We should do right because it is the right thing to do. So the issue about police, and we have really politicized our police. Now the police are a junta. Or is it junta or junta? You know those Portuguese language and the Latin language. Sometimes J is who and something like that. So are you going to respond? For me, if I realize that the police support you and I need to do something, I am going to move away and join anarchy, because I will not even go back to them because I know they are not for me. So the questions about police impartiality, police independence, talking about judiciary being independent. You know, judiciary was so good when they ruled against the presidential election. All of a sudden, they don't matter. We can sneak around and do whatever we want. I want to finish by saying this. That all of us have read about where the persecutions for the children of Israel began. In fact, that chapter, it says that, and then there arose a Pharaoh who did not know Joseph or regard him. When you come up with a law, ensure that that law, even if your worst enemy is the person implementing that law, you can go home and sleep in peace.
Yes.
Because things change. We want to forget, can we do the right things because it is necessary to do the right things? So William spoke for so many people. You don't need to love William, but I don't have to love William. Like I've told you, politics is not a love affair. I don't have, it's only in marriage where you have to love somebody before you move in. But in politics, it's about a working formula. That Areba is here, he can get me votes from Kisii, I can get you votes from Kakamega, you can get me votes from wherever, he will get me some other votes. And that way, we win government. It's business, we do and move. So, it's not a matter of me loving William. I don't have to love William to actually see that he spoke sense. But then the truth is the truth, even if it's spoken by the devil. Do you know that even the devil knows the truth very much?
Quite a lot.
So, from where we are, I think if we really want to have a dialogue, a real dialogue, can we allow everybody to
speak up?
And then the majority will have their say. But these things of micromanaging people and saying, okay, now we are in government, one of those challenges that I have had, and I think it's my upbringing, is to actually be in a place that we are doing a stupid thing, but because I belong, I have to play along. As in, what kind of human being are you? I know there is real politics and then there is idealism. Real politics is that you can get whatever you want by whatever means, and then, of course, the end justifies the means. But sometimes the cost of doing that is so huge. So if you really are a soldier for justice, you will actually stand out and be persistent and consistent.
All right.
And if anyone says the truth, honestly say, that is the truth. If you do the right thing, let us say, so-and-so is saying the motivations don't matter. Paul in the Bible says, he was telling some guys who were arguing that these people, we didn't see them, they were not even associated with the Lord, they are now preaching. And Paul says, it does not matter whatever conviction or motive for which they preach. At the end of the day, the gospel is preached. And I have not spoken about First Isaiah chapter 18, whatever book that is.
John Pesa, your tackle of the day.
My tackle of the day is...
and I think Arnold Maliba will have to give us a tackle.
Yes.
Think about it meanwhile.
My tackle of the day is very simple. We hope for a time in this country when your worst enemy will be in leadership. Simply because we will have strengthened and set up systems in that when they get to power, all they will do is do service delivery. That is my tackle of the day.
All right. Maliba, I don't know if you've thought about something. I give an opinion for your tackle of the day.
My tackle of the day goes, I don't know how you frame them because I'm new on this show, but I will say something that
tackle of the day is your it of the day.
Is a tackle.
Where you feel you want to eat.
My tackle of the day is this. That to them that support BBI without asking questions, to them that support BBI because a leader has said we support BBI, no one in this country says BBI is 100% wrong. What if BBI does not pass? That is a question I really want to pose. What if we even have got a referendum and it flops? What if it does not go through? Will the sky fall? You know, there is the tone that has been set out here is such that it must pass. We have got the numbers, we have got the system, we have got the people who are counting, and it is so forceful. And I am asking, like all things, there's a possibility that it doesn't go through. What will happen? Because we really need to start conditioning people to accept that there is a possibility of failure. And I'll just run through this very fast in a minute. That in 2002, we had a sitting government that if you actually have to define what a system is, that government lost an election. In 2005, we had a government that was in place. It went to a referendum and it lost a referendum. In 2007, we had a government that was sitting, the same government that lost in 2005. That government lost an election in 2007. There's no argument about that. That government lost. It had the system, it had everything. In 2013, the system that had their own candidate. They even came up with a party called UDF. They brought Mudavadi on board. The government of the day, using Mudavadi and everything else, and the system at that particular time, people whom we just used to fear, if you hear their names, they lost an election to a TNA coalition, TNA and the URP coalition. So it's also possible, and I need to repeat, it is also very, very, very possible. By the way, a sitting government lost in parliament, in court, in this country. So I've just told you that for those people who are pushing this thing and they start sounding like their life and the very existence of this country depend on it, start thinking about the possibility of losing. My tackle is that start also embracing the thought and the possibility that they could lose. And if they could lose, those are the people we need to start managing. Tufunge duka zote zenye ziko na kamba, watu wasijinyonge, watu wasilete shida, because there is a
possibility. Tuache kupeleka ng'ombe kettle dip kwa sababu sumu dawa ya kupe ni sumu.
Watakunywa. So they should start thinking about the possibility that they can lose. Governments have lost, not in other places, here. Yes.
Oh, thank you so much, Arnold. Thank you so much, Areba, for always coming. Thank you, gentlemen, for the conversation that we've had. Before we go on to read some polls that we did, we had a first poll was about the expectations. And the question was, did yesterday's BBI launch satisfy your expectations? And the first answer was yes. The second was no. Yes, 8%, no, 92%. 92% of Kenyans feel that the expectations on yesterday's launch was not satisfactory to them. Now, the second question was, do you agree with Alex Matere's statement? And yes, 22%, no, 28%. 28% of Kenyans disagreed with Alex Matere's speech yesterday, or statements. And the last question was, whose speech appealed to you most? And the first man was Uhuru Kenyatta at 3%, Raila Odinga at 2%, and William Ruto at 95%. Atwoli at 0%. Atwoli Papa, Pole. You are at 0%, William Ruto 95%, Uhuru Kenyatta 3%, Raila Odinga 2%, Atwoli 2%. Thank you so much, guys.
That poll doesn't have a negative?
You wanted to give a negative. We need to reinvent then.
You need to invent something that goes negative. As in, it was a waste of time.
As in, you can put a down thumb, yes, and say I dislike it. All right. Thank you so much, guys. Ulikuwa main jana ama ni vipi? All right. Thank you so much, guys, for always joining in the conversation. It's always a pleasure to have you. This is a tackle. We love you at a tackle, and we hope to have you again tomorrow. Please keep sharing the broadcast. Keep sharing the broadcast. Keep sharing this broadcast so we can build one small family that's going to influence this country in a better way. We are going to change this country a conversation at a time. A conversation at a time, without fear, without favor, and without any form of intimidation or sponsorship by any place. We speak for ourselves, we speak for the people, and we stand for what we believe in. This is the only place where you get an opportunity to speak the truth. Ukifika hapa, and that's when it's for the tackle. The tackle is a place where the truth thrives. We don't care where you come from. Kama unatoka kwa baba, karibu kuja useme maneno yako. Kama unatoka kwa William, kuja useme maneno yako. Kama unatoka kwa Uhuru, kuja useme yako. Kama unatoka kwa Atwoli pia, kuja useme yako. This is a platform that is open for every other person. It's always a pleasure to have you. Thank you so much for the guys who have made this happen. This is a tackle, and the tackle ends now. See you tomorrow, and bye-bye.